throughout my life, I feel like I've been really blessed with a lot of really positive, good influences. I was born to really into a great home, and
Where was that home?
I was born in St. Ignatius, Montana, but I was raised in Twin Bridges, another little Montana hamlet. And I thought it was the most wonderful place in the world. But my mother was not raised there. My dad was. So our family went back several generations there. And I, I thought it was a wonderful place. However, it was a very small, very rural area. And growing up, I thought I should live in a big city.
Oh, I
And
didn't realize you thought that.
I did. I thought a big city sounded like a lot more exciting place than where I lived, and um, I I liked the idea of travel and adventure, and I grew up. I remember living in one home the whole time I grew up, and my parents both passed away as they were living there, so they stayed in one spot. It was a very constant environment with people around me that I knew and that knew me and knew my family and were very they had expectations for what I should be that made it easy for me to maybe pass over some of the things that I should not have been involved in as a girl. It was a small high school. I had 25 in my graduating class, and I didn't feel, I think in high school I wanted to be the popular, the cheerleader, the all those things. That's what I thought was going to bring me happiness. And I didn't get to do that. Several of my younger sisters were. Even in that small high school, though, I was limited in what I was allowed to do. Probably, in looking back, it was good for me to not have all those experiences that I thought I really wanted. But I was happy anyway.
Mm.
I I felt safe and peaceful, and it was a mountain valley. I had parents that always provided me with shelter and clothing and plenty to eat, a lot of beefsteak, and even because I grew up on a ranch, that's where we grew up, and I grew up next to extended family. My father's parents lived right next to me, so those were all things that were woven in, and I had a heritage of reaching out and being involved in community. My parents were, my grandparents were, and so that's what I grew up seeing. We
So,
discussed,
how,
yes.
how, how does that influence just what you've done in your life with your own community now?
Well, I saw my parents participate, and I used to get really aggravated with my mother as a teenager because she'd say, you can say something. You don't just have to go along with things." And Mom wasn't afraid to make people speak up if something she didn't feel like something was right in community gatherings and things. But just I grew up with the expectation that you contribute. You don't just take. There are expectations to be met, and people need to take responsibility. And so I had examples of that all around me. And because it was a small community, I really believe that adage that says that it takes a community to raise a child, or a village to raise a child. I don't remember exactly how that is stated.
So, what were some of those connections in your community you grew up with?
Well, I had next door neighbors that knew me and that watched over me. I had church leaders that were very involved in my life and role models for me to emulate. I I had good parents. I had aunts and uncles that I enjoyed and that were a part of my life. my mother's family were scattered through a lot of the western United States. Well, and even as far back as Michigan is where her siblings were. But my dad's family were right there. He only had one married brother, and so I had a few cousins right there. But I had cousins that I thought were really cool and that I wanted to be like, and I enjoyed being around when I had the rare occasions to be around my mother's family and those cousins. I had school teachers that trusted me and encouraged me. I grew up thinking that Jackie Kennedy was really a chick lady, and I, the movie stars and the glamour, yeah, that had appeal to me, but. And growing up, I thought I really was going to travel the world, and I was going to be an airline stewardess. I thought that would be wonderful, but my mother and dad just kind of, but life didn't go that direction for me. Good thing. Other people. Does that answer your question about the other people?
No, does it make you feel like you have connected there?
Well, I did have some good friends. I had a little neighborhood girl that was a good friend to me through grade school. We would walk back and forth to school together, and I was devastated when she moved when I was about in the 8th grade. Then I had a really good friend that I went to church with, and she went to a different school, and so I'd only see her about once or twice a week, but we thoroughly enjoyed each other, and were lifelong friends until she was taken by cancer as she was a young mother. But so I had some good friends that were good examples to me.
So when you say good examples, what does that mean? In what way?
Well, I felt like they made good choices. They were nice. They were kind. And we could have fun together. We could laugh and play and enjoy being around one another. And in any circumstances, I did not spend a lot of time with friends because we didn't have time to. On some occasions, Mom would give us permission to go play at the neighbors and with my good friends. But most of my time was actually spent with my siblings. And I have all those sisters of mine.
So do you still keep in touch with those siblings?
I definitely, they're some of my best friends. Don't live close to any of them particularly, but they are a part of my life continually. The friends, like I said, the one friend died, and I've lost contact with others. Although, when I went to my 50th high school reunion, those few that are still living and that came to that reunion, I'd not kept in close contact. But remember, this was a school that had one class, and so from the time I started first grade, there was no kindergarten back then. From the time I started first grade till I graduated from high school, I was with the same kids every year, every class.
Each other's business.
We spend a lot of time with each other when you think about all those classroom hours, and I hadn't stayed in close connection with them. But when we reconnected after 50 years of being away from one another, we thoroughly enjoyed each other's company. Our basic needs and the things that had brought us fulfillment in life were much the same with all that diverse group. And so, yes, those people were a big part of who I became. And then I've tried to pass that on and just tried to follow the example of the people that went before by being involved and trying to be a good neighbor.
So what makes a good neighbor?
Well, it's like the people that you leave at home, that live next to you and are the ones that will stop and feed the dog and check the house and call you.
Find your broken pipes this morning.
Well, they weren't broken pipes, but they were frozen pipes
Yeah.
with the potential to become. But they're people that will do what you need when you need them. And
So I know I've watched you through the years, how you've been a neighbor to people, but what's been your motivation? Like, why does that matter that we're good neighbors to each other?
well, for one thing, it like makes life a whole lot more pleasant. You know, as we're going through it, it's a lot nicer to have a compatible, friendly, happy relationship with the people around us than it is to have animosity with each other. I've always tried to and want to be a window to my Savior's love, and so that as I live my life, people can feel the love of the Lord in their lives through me, because I really feel like I have an obligation to help be an instrument in the Lord's hands in helping make this world a better place.
So how did you find this connection with him in your life?
Well, that was a big part of my growing up years. I grew up in a home where religion was extremely important. My parents, I don't remember sitting down and reading scriptures on a real regular basis. We went to church every week, and that was important. We served our community through our church congregation, and I saw that example given, and people that touched my parents and my family's life at times when we were in need. As I was growing up, I have and gained at a young age that there's a Father in heaven, and I wanted to be back there someday. I wanted to be part of an eternal group that could be reunited, and so that this happy and pleasant life that I've enjoyed here can go with me into eternities. As I leave here, I feel like I'm not done. You know, this is just the beginning. I've grown in my convictions starting as a young person to realize that what I do here will have some effect on what I get to do and be after I leave this tiny little bit of time that we call our earth life, our mortality.
I feel like I'm hearing what Dad just said, and what you kind of want the same things as that Dad wants.
And that's a crucial part to a
Yeah.
happy marriage. We
Yeah.
do. We want the same thing, and I've so been blessed with a good companion that we're compatible. We have the same goals. We don't even really talk about them that much. That's just we just both have those convictions and want those things and want them together. And have supported each other in doing what we need to be able to do the things together that we need.
Has there ever been a time where you have felt more of this connection upward and outward, or maybe where there hasn't, where you felt like it's been lacking? Maybe there's something to learn from that too.
Well, I think a lot of life is just putting one foot in front of the other and doing the things that life demands of you, and try to be cheerfully obedient in doing that. And so sometimes I think we feel those connections maybe more powerfully, but then in times of real need, and I think every day we have real needs, but I know
So
get
specific.
When my
when
brother.
Have you felt a real need?
Well, when my younger brother was hurt in that range accident that eventually took his life. Oh, we wanted so much for that. He was a young father, and we wanted him to be healed and to be able to care for his family, and it didn't happen. And it was a time of soul searching And yet, as I reached heavenward and pleading for those things to happen,
That was
the
real hard on your parents too.
it was a really tender time for our whole family, and there were some hard things that happened, and his life was not spared. He was taken, and yet I had to learn to trust the Lord, and that has been that scripture, trust the Lord with all thine heart and lean not to thine own understanding. My understanding was his family and we needed him, and he should have been healed, but the Lord had a different plan, and I learned a lot through that experience, and really reaching and struggling and trying to make my will compatible with the Lord's will. That's an ongoing lesson.
That helps me understand why you've responded some of the way you have with what I'm going through. Where I probably should be a little more sensitive to that, huh?
Well,
where you're like, you can make it through this, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm like,
well, I, from the time that accident happened, I think I felt like just let him go. It's you get sometimes you get well in this life, and it's harder than not, and so I really went into that thinking, oh, just let him go, and yet you still hang on. We hang on to mortality and that's familiar to us, and but I can't say as I feel like that was a wrong thing to have happen. It was what happened, and yes, there were needs here, but in many ways it was probably easier to have him taken than healed, because he would never have lived a normal
he was in
life.
a coma for like, what, a year and a half?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, and I've had experience and friends that have gone through similar hard things, and solutions to things that we think everybody should be made well don't always work out as well as
So
we
you're
envision.
saying this moment with your brother really taught you to soul search,
Yeah.
to really dig the deepest you ever had, to really understand, what do I need to get out of this?
Well, and just to have hope and faith and courage, irregardless of what was happening, and I feel like we just have got to be able to lift one another and support each other in these trials, and that's part of being a good neighbor, is as we see neighbors with heavy burdens and trials, and we all have those people around us. Sometimes we're that person, and sometimes we're the person that can reach out and help, and that's a big part of life, is learning how and what we can do to ease one another's burdens. We can't take them.
So, Mom, I mean, you've got a fair number of grandchildren and children.
Mm-hmm.
Of all of these experiences you've had in this upward and outward, and just your hope, I think, to be able to go into the eternities and be able to share that love of Christ, why does that matter? What would you tell them?
Well, it's not just about here and now. You've got to have a bigger picture, and I think we're supposed to be happy here and now, but I also know that there is effort required and some sacrifice that will be involved, but it's worth it. And you look at anything worthwhile you do in this life, the effort and the payoffs are pretty big here, but I don't think they're near the. I feel like we can't imagine how neat the payoffs will be as we move on, and I don't want people to miss out on that. we don't want empty chairs around us. We want to be able to gather those that we love in and see them enjoy the fruits and the blessings that are promised as we continue on and doing things that will lift and help not only ourselves but those around us. And so hopefully what I do here encourages. We can't make decisions for people, and goodness knows we all make a lot of mistakes and have need of forgiveness of one another and from the Lord. But it'll be worth it. And I've been blessed with some wonderful experiences that have helped me to appreciate and know the blessings and the goodness that can come into our lives.
Mm-hmm.